What's up, guys? This is going to be the first video in a series of speeches that I will analyze, where I will go through what I see to be the communication and persuasion strategies, and also why I think these speeches are so good. Now, in today's video, I'm going to analyze Donald Trump's tax code speech from his 2016 campaign against Hillary Clinton. Why this speech is so important is because it's credited with essentially winning him the election in that presidential campaign. He does something in this speech that is completely unheard of for politicians in general. He basically admits the truth and he admits his own flaws. So let's dive into it and see exactly what makes it so good.
Use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes.
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most.
Okay, so there's this part where the guy goes, did you basically evade the tax? And he says, of course I do, of course I do. And so does her donors. And the reason that's so powerful is because clearly the person asking the question is trying to expose him as some type of fraud or cheat. And he knows this. So he just admits that he has. Now, what's important to distinguish is it's a loophole and it's not illegal. So he's playing a game. And by saying, of course I do, he's showing that he is honest, because if you analyze this and dug further and he lied about it, then people will be like, well, Donald clearly lied on stage, but he didn't. He admitted the truth. And then the smart thing he did was, of course I do, of course I do. And so did her friends. So not only has he now admitted his own unethical, maybe, behavior, but now he's flipped and taken control of the conversation by saying, but so do her friends, and he's dragging her down with him, which equalizes essentially the playing field of the ethics. Okay, let's continue.
Her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have
a
you
lot
not
of
paid
my
personal federal income tax?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed, and she'll always allow.
Okay, now he does another technique here when the interviewer is trying to interrupt. So the reason the interviewer tries to interrupt is because he's going to try and single out the fact that he said yes, so he can potentially dig more and make Donald seem like essentially a bad candidate. But what Donald does is he doesn't go, stop, let me speak. He just goes, excuse me, and he just continues. So this is a very powerful way of essentially continuing your speech on a debate, because you don't have to be rude, you don't have to be loud, you just have to keep going. And eventually, if you keep going for long enough, the other person will stop. In this case, the interviewer stopped after the first, excuse me. Okay, let's continue.
Because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president. Hillary Clinton, and it's extremely complex, Hillary Clinton has friends that want all of these provisions, including they want the carried interest provision, which is very important to Wall Street people, but they really want the carried interest provision, which I believe Hillary's leaving. It's very interesting why.
Okay, again, a stroke of genius, because he's now flipped the entire debate about Hillary's flaws. And now he's talking about this part about tax debates and tax codes, which I personally don't know too much about. But what he's showing is, yes, I have taken tax code breaks, I suppose. But guess what? So does all of Hillary's friends. And the way he ends that little phrase at the end, he goes, well, and Hillary hasn't changed it. So it makes the audience wonder, wait a minute. If it's so bad, why hasn't Hillary changed it? And he's basically setting up Hillary for the knockout blow.
He's leaving carried interest. But I will tell you that, number one, I pay tremendous numbers of taxes. I absolutely used it, and so did Warren Buffett, and so did George Soros, and so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from. Now,
okay, so he goes, I absolutely used it. I absolutely used the tax code, and so did Warren Buffett and George Soros. I know who Warren Buffett is. He's one of the richest people alive, if not the richest. And they're friends of Hillary. So if it's so bad that you're accusing me of these tax codes, then what about the friends behind Hillary? What about her donors who are using the exact same tax code that I am? So now he's essentially turned this gotcha question into a reverse counter where now he's associating Hillary's friends with the exact same issue. So Hillary is no better than him.
Won't mention their names because they're rich, but they're not famous, so we won't make them famous.
Can you say how many years you have avoided paying personal federal income taxes?
No, but I pay tax and I pay federal tax too. But I have a write-off. A lot of it's depreciation, which is a wonderful charge. I love depreciation. You know, she's given it to us. Hey, if she had a problem, for 30 years she's been doing this, Anderson. I say it all the time. She talks about health care. Why didn't she do something about it? She talks about taxes. Why didn't she do something about it? She doesn't do anything about anything other than talk. With her, it's all talk and no action.
In the past,
Okay, that was basically Hillary on the ropes. And you can even look at her reaction. She's like, oh shit, I'm getting caught out. So you can tell that the interviewer says, can you tell us how many years you didn't pay tax for? And why that's an important question is because he clearly is trying to paint the agenda of Donald being a tax evader. He doesn't ask anything else about what he said. He doesn't ask about what Hillary has done. Doesn't ask about Hillary's friends. He asks about whether whether Donald has evaded tax. Now, I don't know the context of this interview because I'm Australian. I don't know how these work, but it's very interesting to me that this interviewer is trying to paint this particular narrative with these questions. So what Donald does again is a stroke of genius. He says, I'm not going to tell you this, but I do pay lots of tax and I pay a lot of it in depreciation. I know what depreciation is. We all probably do. He goes, I pay a lot of it in depreciation and I love that tax. And Hillary hasn't done anything about it. If it's such a bad tax, Hillary hasn't done anything about it. And Hillary has talked about health and she was a senator for 30 years. Why hasn't she done anything about it? So now again, he's turned it back onto Hillary and really exposed the viability of her actions as a senator. Because if we all just thought about it without knowing anything about politics, if you've got somebody who says they want to make change and yet they've been in a position of power for 30 plus years to make change and yet no change has happened, then it makes you wonder whether this person is actually just all talk or if he's actually going to do anything. Okay, let's continue.
Again, Bernie Sanders, it's really bad judgment. She has made bad judgment not only on taxes, she's made bad judgments on Libya, on Syria, on Iraq. I mean, her and Obama, whether you like it or not, the way they got out of Iraq, the vacuum they've left, that's why ISIS formed in the first place. They started from that little area, and now they're in 32 different nations, Hillary. Congratulations. Great job.
Casey.
Wow. So that was basically the knockout blow. From tax code, he took control of the conversation. He admitted that he was bad, but he dragged Hillary's friends with her. Then he questioned her viability as anybody that gets things done. And he also dragged Obama's name into it with regards to the war in Iraq and how they were basically the catalyst behind ISIS. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but if I was just listening to the speech, I would say, wow, imagine Hillary did all these things, or imagine if it was true, then Hillary really messed up. So to recap this speech, I think what's really important for any of you watching, if you want to be more persuasive, is if something's true, admit it. You should prepare in your debates or in your speeches that if you have any flaws that could be exposed, you should basically expose yourself first. And after you expose yourself, if it is a debate against somebody, then you want to make your counter argument against something that they are even worse at, which is basically what Donald did. So I loved this 2-minute speech. I think it was absolutely brilliant because it was raw, it was real, and it was so strategic in the way he bounced off the interviewer and made it and took control of the speech. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the video, please subscribe, please do whatever you need to do. But I'll see you on the next video.